All right. I think we're ready to get started. Just setting up the rest of the stuff. Shooting lemons, that's right. Jump and shoot, man. That's such a great video. I used to show that video. Oh, my music is like so loud, I'm like yelling. I used to show that video when I do talks about game dev. So let's see. What are we gonna do today? We are gonna keep rebuilding Jump and Shoot Man. I got a new build of Pixel Vision 8 that I was working on earlier this morning. Let's copy that guy over, and here we go. Build 745. I've got a lot of builds for the game creator, but this morning I was working on. I came up with a really great monochromatic lemon. Hey, 2D Heroes. I was gonna talk about how we had a great chat this morning, and you were upset about the way I used your artwork because I probably screwed it up. Why is that set to workspace? Why is my workspace 8.0? Whatever. All right. So what I want to do is yesterday, let's compress this, and we're gonna call this MapGen V1. So archives. I like that. Basically, where we ended up yesterday was I went through and I cleaned up all of the. I cleaned up the MapGen code, and now what it does is it pulls out sections of templates from a larger map file. So if I open up tiled, we will here basically what happens is that this top row is left for where we copy sections of the tile map into the memory. And then each of these little areas below it, I'll get rid of the flag so you can sort of see these templates. Each of these areas below wind up becoming little templates that are copied over. And I added some numbers so it was easy to sort of see what was going on with that. And so here's what you're seeing is that it's just going through, and there's some other code that I added which I'm actually kind of proud of that we figured out how to do yesterday, which was it now reads the first column and the last column automatically and stitches them together. So like if this column ends with 2 here and 1 here, it'll match it up with like template 1 or template 2. Likewise, if it ends with 3 or whatever it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on this side, it'll match it up with 10, and so on and so forth. So for the most part, this works out pretty well. There's some caveats to how this works. Since I did this by hand, like I just saw one where sometimes the transition doesn't look very clean because it's only looking at the collision area. But for the most part, you know, it's a lot better than setting this all up by hand. I had this like massive. I don't want to search this Mac. I had this massive PSD file that I created, which showed off each of. I called it the template matrix, where it showed off each of the how to match it all up. And I was doing this during Ludum Dare by hand, and this is sort of obnoxious. So I don't have to worry about this anymore. The engine is smart enough to do it on its own. So today, what we're going to get into is the entity system, animations, and spawning entities off of the tile map. So my belief is that code was actually pretty good from my Ludum Dare game, but as we saw the past 2 days, when I was only supposed to take me like an hour or two to get the MapGen stuff working, that code sort of sucked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy over Spawner, and I'm going to put this into our current workspace. And I'm actually going to rename this and call it Code Entities. And this will be our entity system. Let's open up Atom, and let's get this party going. So Let's see. How's everyone's Friday going? Mine's going all right. Sort of a little anxious this morning. It's like a lot of stuff that I want to be doing, but I'm not. I feel like I wasn't making as much progress with this as I really wanted. So I was going to start at 8:30 because I have a meeting at 12 that I have to stop for. But I don't know. I keep waking up at like 3 or 4 in the morning and working on my stuff because I'm not getting. There's not enough hours in the day, unfortunately. All right, so let's do this. We're going to do load script, and we're going to pull in the code entities Lua file. Let's get rid of this because we don't need to debug the map generator stuff, and map gen and template stuff should be done. And now we're going to focus on entities. So, all right. For this class, we're going to have a there's a global entities list. I was doing C# this morning, and my brain hasn't switched over, so let me get back into Lua. Global table for all entities, and this class isn't very large. There was a lot of stuff that that I started adding in, but I needed to insert, remove. I guess this is the updated version. All right, so what we're gonna do is we'll go through this line by line. We're gonna try to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and what we would do to clean up. Now there are two pieces to this entity system. The first is the spawn entity logic, and what I wanted to do was change this up where I looked for this custom configure entity class, and we should actually come over here and we should bring over entities. So I see what I did here and why I called this spawner. Why don't we call it this? Entity manager. And what we want is a separate, did I spell entities wrong? Or it just doesn't like Lua. There we go. Andrew's well aware of my inability to spell. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a, well, I'm just going to copy it over because it's easier to copy it over than have to like rewrite all this crap. But we're going to pull over our entities class. So the way that this sort of worked was each entity has its own sort of function to configure it, right? And what happens is when the entity spawner creates an entity, first we look to see if the ID is nil. This I'm going to return. I don't need this. Actually, we can get rid of this. We don't need this anymore. What we're actually going to do is we're going to test to see that there is a method for configuring an entity. If there is not, then we will... let's do this. We're going to return nil by default. And here we'll return entity data. And let's wrap the entire thing in a method that tests to see if we have a global configure entity and pass in the ID. If we don't have that, then we're not going to create the entity. So the first thing that we do is there is a basic set of default values that an entity can have, and this should be change type to collision flag, right? Okay, so we're going to call this a type. Remove entity. entity, remove. ID. All right, so there's a few things that I want to do here to make this a little bit easier. Ali's, he's deaf, so I have to type out something for him. I didn't forget. Your code, just been busy. Hoping this new entity system will help you out. And I'll send after the stream. Cool. All right, so what I want to do is we'll have a unique ID. Let's see. Insert the table for the entity. And this will return the value of it. Return the final entity data. Return nil when no entity was created. All right. Removing an entity based on the ID and update the entities and draw entities. So one of the things that I feel could be a little bit more streamlined is whether an entity is animated or not. And like, I want to break the system up a little bit. And right now, the main loop just literally goes through and it goes through and it just it tries to figure out everything for you. And what I want to do is modify this now, because later, like early on in the development, when I was building for Ludum Dare, I was trying to have like one catch-all function that sort of did everything. But then eventually I wound up having it where the entity just gets its own update called. And what I'd like to do is get the entity's own draw called. And what we're going to move towards is a system where each entity has an update and a draw call. And then the loop will just go through and automatically detect whether it needs to call that or not, and then do whatever housekeeping it should do. Which is mostly like if it's off the screen, we basically remove it from the screen. So, okay, so print spawn entity. So one thing that we did was that we added UIDs so that each of the entities would have a new UID. So let's see here. Remove entity by ID. All right, so sorry, this isn't making very much. Don't you guys want to hear me type on chat? All right, I just want to figure out. So remove entity by UID, which is probably what we need. We're going to simplify this a little bit here, and remove entity. I just want to see where it deletes, where I wound up adding the delete stuff. Update entity, insert table. All right, I don't think I'm actually properly deleting this stuff. So let's go through and start trying to get something spawned. So what we need first is going to be a basic entity. So we have this player here. and configure physics entity. So let's do this. We're going to just spawn the player and see how that works. I'm going to set the speed to 50. And what we'll do is call spawn entity, and we're going to call this player. And we'll just set it to 100, 100. So there's no physics attached or anything. It's just going to float. Let's see here. Code entities Lua 42. 42. Remove entity by ID. Whatever. All right, let me pull this stuff back and just leave it as it was before. Call to a nil value, 42. Entities, 42. Okay, here we go. We don't have this as part of the system yet. So we're going to just pull this stuff out right now. Where did the player go? Oh, right. We're not updating the player, so we won't see them. So what we're going to do here is call update entities. And we'll pass in the scroll position. And then we're going to call draw entities. All right, so hopefully we'll see the player or not. Or not is the operable word. Remove entity nil player. Spawn player. Did anyone see the player, or am I missing something? Oh, well, the other part, what's missing is I haven't created any of the. I haven't created the sprite list yet. So let's come here and let's look at the old project, and we're going to copy over the sprite builder folder and paste this in. So the sprite builder folder basically contains all of these sprites. The only difference is going to be that there's these guys don't have the outlines. So all right, let's take a second to come back here, and what we're going to do is I'm going to draw out slices for all this stuff and then just save it all out. I'll get the names of everything in a little bit. We'll just do some quick slicing. But so what I'm going to do is probably just go like piece by piece and name the things that we need one by one to make sure that it works. A lot of this little stuff I know what it is, and I'll just keep this as a PSD in there, and as we connect things up, we'll oh, that stinks. All right, I'll have to fix this because I can't have this wrap like this. So what I just got to copy this piece over and move this here. I'll just see if I can copy all this stuff over and then put the spikes where they need to go. The spikes are individual. All right. yesterday or the other day when I first started doing this, I was trying to get this to be like perfectly lined up with where I wanted everything. Did I lose all the sprites? Oh, did I lose all these? How do I want to get this working? Yeah, that'll work. All right, it's fine. Man, I don't need to spend like a million. I just need to get these things. It's not going to be perfect. I just need it organized enough that when you uh, basically what happens is I just wanted you to be able to. Since this is going to be for a tutorial, I wanted it to like at least look a little bit cleaner. So when you're looking at it, you can sort of like visualize where all the sprites are. Let's do that. We'll go back to cutting up these pieces, and then we'll, like I said, we'll rename them later. And there's some other things that we could do with the way that they're broken up now, because I'm using, I'm not having the engine optimize it. We could actually have it cut it out based on block size instead of using this the sprite builder. But I think the sprite builder is one of the more powerful features in the Pixel Vision 8 workflow. Whoops. We'll do that. I know, the joys of game development, cutting up artwork. But this has been a pretty good process. Like, this is what I was talking to Andrew about earlier today, was that, I mean, we've been working on this artwork, these art packs for like years now. And I've never really gotten it to where I felt comfortable. But now what I feel like's happening is that I built enough of a little test bed that I can throw his artwork into this like endless runner engine, test out that everything works, and then we can validate it. And all I'm trying to do with these, all I'm trying to do with this artwork is just get it to the point where it's sort of easy to use. I think there's something I want to. Like, you're never going to make a full game out of this, but what I really want to get is what I really want to get to is the point where you can at least feel comfortable and get started. Because, like, the big thing that I built Pixel Vision 8 for, outside of just a tool for myself to build more accurate 8-bit games, was is this notion of just teaching people how these old 8-bit systems work. Like, what does it mean to... There's a lot of fantasy consoles out there. I think that's really cool. I really like that this is like a resurgence in like old hardware. What I'm more concerned with now is saying like, okay, well, now that you know that these systems existed, what did it really mean to like be limited by 3 colors per sprite? Like, how does that even work? What do you have to give up in order to achieve that? I'm still sort of struggling with how to get this to where I want it to be. I was trying to see if I can get trying to see if I can get a little extra space in here. All right, so all I'm thinking about is when I cut out the sprites, it's not going to be, these need to be the full size as this guy. So right now I'm just trying to go through and figure out where I can get the extra space. I lost some pixel data here. There we go. This guy is just, this one's a little bit problematic. I need to figure out where to put him so that he'll fit. I can move down all of this stuff. I was just wondering if there's a place where I can get 3, where I could sort of cheat. All right, we'll figure this out in 1 second. If you're just tuning in, I'm just cleaning up some artwork and I'm just trying to position this stuff where it'll make the most sense. Let's put this over here is what I'm thinking of where I want to put them. And I'm thinking of moving these bullets over. I should almost be done with this. Because what'll happen is that these guys need to have this empty space above it so that the sprites are properly aligned when I cut them out. And then we can get back to the show. Yay! The only one that's missing now is this one. Is this stuff not aligned correctly now? Yeah. That's like that's the one thing. This should be 1 higher. Brah, almost. I almost did it. All right, well, close enough. We'll cross that bridge when we have to. All right, let me delete some of this stuff here. How I cut this up, and I'll have to recut it up. Anyone working on anything cool this weekend? I think I'm gonna take a break from Pixel Vision 8. Actually, spend some time with my boys before I travel out to Seattle next week. I got to. We got that the Nintendo the Labo thing, and I've been eager to like build that and play around with it and see how it works. I don't know if Andrew's still on the stream. He must be like having a heart attack going through and seeing how I've like screwed up and just like mixed and matched his sprites and stuff and really had no disregard for what the hell I was doing. All right, so I think that'll just get us through the first round of cutting things out. Let's just what I'd like to do before I finish up this Pomodoro is just dust 2, dust 3, Dust 4. I just want to name some of this stuff and get these slices working because I'm going to re-output all the stuff. I know he probably hates this explosion. I feel so bad. I don't mean to, as a person who's also an artist, like I know what it's like when somebody like takes your art, it's like fucks it up. 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hard head fall, hard head jump. No, I don't want to open it. I'm hoping I just rename this stuff real quick so I can... I think it's idle. Andrew, are you still there? You sleeping or something? Health. Energy. Maybe what I need from you is like a label. Like I need you to like name all this crap so I understand how it goes together. Hidden turret 1. Hidden turret 2. Like, is this guy, is that a stand animation or is that part of your walk cycle? I can't even tell. You have like one part of your walk cycle that looks like he's standing idle. And I always just think it's an idle. Three, 4. Whoops. The walk cycle usually contains the standing animation. Yeah. Alright, well, I'm calling that idle for right now, and then we can figure something else out. Meter left energy. I'm almost done renaming this stuff. This is like the boring part, but luckily I did all the hard work during Ludum Dare. And whoops, what is that thing called? Meter right end. Where are we? Player fall. Player idle. Idle 2. Idle gun. Idle gun 1. Idle gun 2. Idle. Idle. Jump with the gun. I'm assuming that's the jump. Run and jump man. I need like a theme song for Run and Jump Man. Player walk 1. Player walk 2. Player walk 3. Once I get all this set up, Andrew's gonna like redo it, I'm sure. The next thing that we're gonna try to build together is a sort of random generator for, or random decorator for Mega Man style bad guys. I wasn't really happy with the bad guy that we sort of came up with. So I wanted to come up with something a little bit more modular, so that you can take these and sort of build your own bad guy. That was like one of the things I loved to do as a kid. I used to draw, like, I drew like tons of Mega Man bad guys. I loved drawing Mega Man. All right, I think this should be spike ball small, 2, and then spike ball large. All right, I think that's it, right? Oh, I haven't even named this. I think what we should do is it should just be this. I don't know where I pulled this one from. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't done anything with that one yet, so we'll get to that later. I also didn't do anything with the door. I feel like I'm missing some I'm missing some stuff at the door. Once I get the new artwork from Andrew, I'll probably move this around just a little bit. But right now, this sort of covers 90. Well, this covers 100% of what I did in Jump and Shoot Man. But let's do this. We'll say this is sprite references. I saved you from a really loud sneeze. It's allergy season, yay! All right, so we're working on the entity animation code, and now that I have all this stuff done, what we're going to do is we're going to output these into the Sprite Builder folder, and let's delete everything in the Sprite Builder folder. I'm in the right place, right? 0.8, yeah, perfect. And we're only going to use user slices and save this out. And what this should do is now output all of the sprites for us. And then these are now updated with the new outline, sort of how I set it up during the game. So, all right, all this looks good. Now all we need to do is we'll basically talk about how Sprite Builder works. In Pixel Vision 8, well, in the Game Creator Pro, you have this thing called Sprite Builder, and you create a folder in your project called Sprite Builder. You put in the sprites. Now, these have to be in multiples of whole sprites. They can't just be like fractional, so that means it has to be like divisible by 8. And then what happens is that when you hit build, I'm going to hit build. It's going to go through the project. It's going to go through all of these sprites and check in memory where they sit. And then it's going to output a Lua file. And let's take a look at this Lua file real quick here. So you'll see a new file here called SB. We should see one. Did it not get saved? Oh, let me There we go. All right, you'll see a new folder called SB Sprites, and it'll use the file name and then give you an array of each sprite ID. So like this Dust 1, for example, it's sprite 253 and 254. So if we look up 253, it'll highlight it, and 254 should be right next to it. Now, one thing I didn't do is we need to go back into this, and we need to save out this new layout. Just so it matches up with everything that it's expecting. So we're going to call this, we're going to make this a PNG file. And we'll make this sprites, PNG, replace. And now if we reload this, cool. Oh, hey, look, some of this stuff is has too many colors. Wonder what's going on there. Interesting. I don't know why these aren't importing correctly, but we can look at that later. All right, so that's oh, the other thing I'm excited about, Andrew's going to make me a font, because I stink at making fonts. I also was thinking of making pixel art. I mean, I can sort of clean things up, maybe. But all right, so I think we're good to go. The only thing is, like, why is this not Oh, I know why. There's a sprite cache. Let's move that to the trash. And then, actually, what we need to do is, before we do something stupid, let's go to tile. Let's go to tiled, and we want to output. We're going to save an image for the tile map, and we're going to save an image for the flags. Tile map flags, and I'm going to have it since I changed the don't save. Since I changed the sprite layout, I have to rebuild the tile map. So I'm going to delete that, move to trash. And now if I come back here and we reload, I've gotten rid of the sprite cache. So now we should have the new layout for the sprites. That stinks that it got cropped on the page. 128. That was the other reason why I think I laid things out the way that I did. All right, let's make one modification to this. I'm trying to get it to where when you look at it page by page, it doesn't look broken. And I just need to take this and this. I'll put it down here for a second. And we'll take this, 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 and this, move it up. And take these two. And put that there. All right, cool. So now I'll save this. And now if I came back in here and I refreshed, at least the page will look a little bit cleaner. Yeah, so nope. What did I... Oh, I have to save this out. Hold on. There's quite a few steps. Unfortunately, that's like a byproduct of Pixel Vision 8's workflow is once you sort of get this down pat, it's easier, but I have to figure out ways of making this a lot simpler because it is a lot of steps. All right, replays. Basically, once you start changing the layout of the artwork, there's like a lot of things you need to do to go back through and clean up. All right, so now if we come here, we'll see this stuff is later. Why is 1, 2, 3? Why is it running into a problem with this? I have a feeling like there we go. That's the problem. It's not the right gray. All right, so let's do this. We're going to save out new versions of the Sprite Builder. We're going to save this thing out as a new PNG. And then we're going to reload this, and now all the artwork should load correctly. No? Oh, wait, it didn't finish saving. Thank you, Photoshop. You're so helpful, Photoshop. There we go. Hey, look, everything's loading correctly now. And that's another good thing about the tools. Like the reason, like even though you can't draw sprites in Pixel Vision 8, at least now, like the real thing is that these tools allow you to debug and see like if there's any errors and stuff like that. The tile should have the border color where the transparency is. Well, you want that to be dark? No, you didn't mess that up. I was screwing around with stuff, Andrew. No, what's going to happen is it'll look like that. I was trying to get 4 colors out of it, and you basically just see the... what I was doing was I was trying to add a border around it, and then this mask will be replaced with the background color. So, yeah. Why, do you not like that? That was the only way I could figure out how to get 4 colors out of them. Andrew. Play nice with others. So, I mean, when it spawns another tile map, you'll see like right there, it's filling in the gaps for us. So yeah, I mean, well, you got the file now. You could Andrew, you can go in and sort of clean it up how you want. I felt like it needed the way it was originally set up. I felt like it was too dark. Well, the lack of contrast between the negative space and the background color is one of the major complaints I have with the game. Oh, really? Oh, see, I sort of like that. I was trying to get it to where what I was trying to get to was the air should be a lighter color than the negative space in the tile shadow. All right, well, then I clearly suck at pixel art. So, all right, well, then what do you want to see? Well, originally we had it where, hold on, let's go in and take a look at this for a second here. Da, 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 da. I felt like it was too dark. Like, so, all right. If I come in here and I take a look at this, for example, right? The way that these were set up, it would make the background color black. And I felt like the Mega Man character looked too muted on it. So what I tried to do is use the lighter gray for the background and then the darker to outline them and make them pop out. But maybe I just don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know, Andrew. I didn't mean to undo all your work. So if you want to go back through and sort of clean it up and show me, I guess what I really need is like a full comp to see how you would want to lay this stuff out and how it would look. I was trying to get like a little bit more definition in between the lines, but you are the artist. I am just some schmuck trying to put the code together. All right, so what I want to do now is, yeah, I prefer the lighter version with the character. I only added the darker one because you said you'd prefer that one. I'll tell you what, I sent you over that file. If you could just take a pass at it and just show me what you want, and I'll use that. No problem. Well, I just created more work for you, but I will compensate you for the additional time. Let's see what all right, what I want to do is let's redo the sprite builder one more time. And what I'm kind of curious as to why I'm not seeing the player pop up. Let's do this. Let's set the speed to 0, and I just want to spawn the player at 0, 0 for right now. Like he should be showing up somewhere. So spawn entity, sprites, code entities, player walk. Oh, right. I renamed this stuff. Whoops. Oh, you know what? I think I might have had too many Wait, hold on. Where was that? Andrew, where was that thing that you sent me that had the... hold on, I gotta look up this tweet that Andrew sent me. I might rework the character a bit to use the Mega Man face color trick, though, so we can get a little bit more definition out of him. Yeah, do that. That's good. I like that. I was gonna say, like, maybe just rework as part of coming up with this, like, sort of Mega Man bad guy generator thing. Just rework the player, and then we'll just use the same sort of template system all around. Let me see where. All right, you always use 1 0 2 1. 1 0 2 1. So let's go back here. Whoops. How did you have it laid out? This was 1. That's right, that was 0. 1 2. All right. What is 1020? Is that how much these changes are going to cost me? Let's re-output this. Then let's get out of this and rebuild this. No. Not 1 0. Yeah, I had it screwed up. Don't worry. I'm gonna fix it right now. I'm gonna fix the whole thing. It'll be player. Technically, I didn't do it at 0 because it's Lua based. So yours is 2, 1, 3, 1. Right? This is 1, 2, 3. Sort of baffled as to why it's not rendering. Why are we not rendering anything? Am I missing something here? Let's take a look. All right, so I'm going to remove a lot of this stuff and just get it to where frames. All right, what I want to do is this. I'm going to pull out function time delta. I'm going to try to break this stuff out so it's a little bit more reusable. I'm gonna create on the let's do this for a second. On the entity, I want to create on update. Let's just do this. Print player update. And let's go here, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all of this stuff. And we're just going to rebuild this from the ground up, because as cool as it is to like copy and paste code, the shit just never works. So in essence, what we're going to do is we're going to go through an entity, and if entity on update doesn't equal nil, then end, and we'll do entity on update, and we'll call that, and we're going to pass in the time delta. So then from here, we just want to make sure that we're calling this, and we'll see how this works. All right, so I'm going to rerun the game, and let's see if the player is... We spawned the player, but he's not updating. So am I not calling the right method in... Update entities, time delta. We're adding the entity. We're looping through it. Oh, I know what I need to do. On the entity itself, I'm going to disable all these other entities. We'll rebuild them piece by piece. What I want to get is I want to get the bare minimum for this thing to work. So, all right, we're going to go through, we're going to clean this up. The player is the more complicated one because he has different states and stuff. So we'll deal with that in a second. All right, so we want on update. All right, so player update is now being called. So now the next thing we want to do is animate the player. And I have the logic here. It's going to be something like this. We'll just copy this over and go through and clean it up. All right, so we're going to pass in an entity. If the entity's frames is not set to nil, we're going to go through and update the entity's time. If time is greater than the frame delay, entity time equals 0, set the new frame. If the frames are greater than the total number of frames, reset this. I might use a clamp or something for that, but this is just as easy. And then push this, push the new frame into the current frame, into the current sprite data that should be displayed. The reason we do this is that the renderer is only looking for sprite data. So what we're doing with this basic animation stuff is the basic thing that we're trying to do is there might be entities that aren't animated. So we're looking to see if there's different frames, then we increment the frames. If not, we'll always just render whatever the sprite data is, assuming there is sprite data for it. So let's run this and see if it... Oh, I need to pass in the animate thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to call animate entity. And on our entity, we will replace the print with the with data time delta. Come on. All right, so I don't even know if that was working. Am I drawing these things? On update. Let's simplify this stuff. We're going to get rid of the cleanup code. Get rid of this. And we won't check for remove just yet. So, if you're tuning in, I'm just working on a little Mega Man clone that I wrote for Ludum Dare and trying to clean up. For some reason, it's not displaying anything. Let's just do this by hand. I don't know why this isn't draw entity, sprite data, sprite IDs. What I want to do is look at player. I'm just going to do the raw data and just make sure that this actually works with false, sprite mode, entity color offset. I'll set that to 0. Oh, you know why it probably wasn't drawing? $5 says the palette. I didn't have an extra palette. I was shifting the palette. 63. Attempt to index a nil value. Entities, sprite data, energy, let's set this to 0 for right now and see if that will get him to draw. Nope, 9. What the hell's going on today? Today my brain doesn't work. Oh, you know why? Holy shit. How about this? How about we load up the sprite library? There we go. Jesse needs to get more sleep. SB sprites. Let's make sure that the color offset is set to 0 by default. And yeah, you gotta love it when I add a lot of conditions to not have errors get thrown, and then I can't figure out what the hell is. Hey, look at that guy. He works. Fascinating. All we had to do is load in the artwork. All right, so what I want to test out real quick was let's do 50, and we're going to set the spawn to 100, and we'll set it to 100. All I want to see is now he should move along the screen with him, and then he goes and he gets put off the screen. So now what's happening is that he's no longer rendering. You can sort of see the you can sort of see that happen as he sort of gets like clipped off the screen. What I'm kind of curious about is if that's a bug or if I didn't set the overscan. New things I added this morning was the project size now, where you now if I tried to build this, well, it should build because it is. It's now giving you the compressed size for. It'll estimate out what if you were to export this, what the size of the game would be. So now it's 40K, and there's a limit of 125K. So you can change that. I'm going to show you exactly where we can change that. You could set the maximum size here. All right, I'm not doing overscan, so let's set 1 overscan and play this. And now you'll see it's subtle. It's really hard to see the difference. But basically what happens is if you watch him on the left hand, I'll slow this down a little bit. Let's set this to like 10 and set the player to 50. So I have a helper method in here. What I have is his animation looks funny. I know I need to look into I'll look into that in 1 second. I just want to test out that this is working correctly. So you'll see him slowly walk, and basically he'll get to the edge of the screen, and then he'll smoothly go off screen. If we were to go in and not have an overscan, so all overscan is it takes 8 pixels off of the right and 8 pixels off of the bottom. It's basically, it removes an entire row, entire column in a row. If I set this back to 0 and hit save, and then replayed it, you'll see in a second it'll get cropped a lot sooner because it hits that edge. So basically the draw sprites method, spawn entity, I use this thing called draw sprites. There's a bunch of extra stuff in this is like a helper function. Normally what you would do if you're just drawing a sprite is you would just draw it on your own, and then the thing that's interesting about like Nintendo games is that there was no notion of off screen. If you went past 256, it would actually wrap around again. So what the draw sprites is like a helper that takes the regular draw sprite, which doesn't care about off screen, and it adds some functionality to let you do off screen, to let you do scrolling, and it sort of makes it just a little bit easier to work with than doing it all by hand. When would you ever want overscan to crop weirdly like that? So hey, clones. So basically, the way that the old Nintendo games work, I think I have this illustrated in I believe it's in the documentation. So what would happen is in the old Nintendo games, they would use the overscan as a place to put sprites off screen, so you didn't see them. Let me log in real quick. So if we take a look, let's see, I should have overscan in here somewhere. Loading sprite data, rendering. Maybe I didn't document it yet. Yeah, so like here's an example of the overscan. Like you would see if you didn't have overscan on, it would automatically draw it would automatically draw right on the other side as soon as you hit the edge. So one of the games that actually uses that is Super Mario 3. If you emulate Super Mario 3, you'll always see there's like this weird gutter off to the right hand side. In fact, I wonder if I have a I don't have it all set up. I don't have the emulator set up. But do I talk about overscan in this? Draws. I don't. I thought I had. I thought I had something about overscan in here. Chip editor tool. Maybe I do it here. No, I haven't finished. I guess I haven't finished the documentation for it. Long story short is that you could the overscan really was the area on the screen that the monitor would cut off, and you would just use that to hide sprites. Did you make that website myself? No, the website is it's not WordPress. I'm so happy to be off of WordPress. I'm actually using Podia.com. And now my so the Pixel Vision. So I basically sell Pixel Vision 8 through Podia.com as a course, and there's like a membership too. So like, what I liked about it was the only reason I actually ask for money for Pixel Vision 8 isn't because I want to get rich, because clearly that's not going to let me retire. It's just to help pay people like Andrew and all the other artists who are helping me build artwork and stuff for it. So you can join this fantasy console club. And there's a free membership, which gives you a free copy of the game, or you can go pro for $1 a month, and then it just gives you access to other stuff that I basically sell. But that being said, I hate like plugging. Like I'm not here to plug this stuff. I'm here to build games. So long story short, it's not WordPress. It's a service, and you just pay for the service. It's a monthly. It's like a monthly or an annual fee, and it's basically a good alternative to it's a good alternative to what the hell is that other site, Patreon. All right, so let's see here. All right, so right now it looks like our player is working. I'm going to put the overscan back on. If you can't plug your own stuff in your own channel. Well, I hate like I always hate that moment in like I always hate that moment in Wayne's World where they're like, we're not sellouts. Plus, technically the reason I have this channel right now I'm building up some game examples, but I do this for work, and what I want to do for what I'm trying to do is build a few games so I can test out and show you guys how to make games with a new service we have at Amazon called Game On, which lets you add online leaderboards and real-world prizes. So you could add competitions to your games. So part of why I built this little game outside of just testing out the game engine was to do some better code examples for Game On. Thanks, clones. I could use you in my own project. What this you're saying my game creator? You like the UI on it? Me and Pedro worked on it. You should see the new stuff that CastPixel and I are working on. I already have her designing version 2 of Pixel Vision 8, and it looks amazing. All right, so now that we've sort of been distracted, all right, we're able to spawn a player, and that looks good. What I wanted to do was this. Let's get the player where they belong on the screen. I'm just gonna take a quick screenshot and then just see how far off they need to be. And where the hell did my screenshots folder go? How's it going, clones? Long time no speak. Hope all is well in your game dev world. All right, our height. So what I want to do is we're going to get him somewhere along in the middle of the screen. So we'll just say like 64 by 112. So 64, 112. Oh, right. I have to take into account the height, so we'll make it 88. All right, there we go. So, so right now the problem is that the player is going bye-bye with the rest of the screen scroll, and we want to sort of fix this. So the way that we're going to do this is we're actually going to yeah, give me a key. I'll check it out. What are you working on? So we're going to set this player, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a reference to the player when we spawn the player. So create player. And then what we're going to change here is the fact that instead of changing, we're going to change the player's X position to, we'll get rid of this scroll position stuff, and we're just going to use the player's X position. And we'll set this to player X. We could set it to player Y, but then what winds up happening is... actually, I'm trying to think about how I want to do this. What we could do is set the scroll position to... Yeah, let's do this. We'll get rid of this scroll position. And we'll set this up as the player now. And then we'll pass the scroll position into these two things where we need them. Hi, have you done Lua coding? Yeah, I'm using Lua code. Hey, clones, by the way, you can either you can send me a DM on Twitter, or you can just mail me at makegames@pixelvision8 or whatever. I don't know if you have my other email, or it's just jessefreeman@gmail. All right, so the real Stitch is asking if I've done Lua. Yeah, this is all Lua. This is a layer of Lua scripting that sits on top of the C# code base. So Pixel Vision 8 is written in C#, and then I use Lua as sort of like a scripting language on top to sketch things out. Let's take a look now at how this scrolls and if this still works. Oh wait, I wanted to set this to 0. I don't want to change the Y position. And then, oh, you know what we're going to do? Minus 32. All right, so the more that we, 64. The more that we offset it, the more centered the player is going to be on the screen. So what we'll do here is, let's create a local scroll X offset equals, we're setting it to 64, so we'll just offset it by 64. So what we're going to do is we're going to spawn the player. Actually, we can do, how did I get into Lua? When I was building out my fantasy game console, all the other fantasy game consoles use Lua, so I figured that was what I should do. I actually don't like the language at all. It's really terrible language. let's do this. Scroll offset. But you sort of, after a time, you sort of get used to it. As long as you don't do what I do, it's just like 2 hours ago I was coding in C#, and then now I'm coding in this. But to learn, I don't know. I just I pick up programming languages really quickly, so so it didn't take me very long. It's just a matter of I think the biggest things you have to understand about Lua is well, okay. How about this? The real Stitch. What programming language do you come from? All right, there we go. So now he's set. Let's set this to 36. I feel like in a sort of like a runner like this, he needs you need to see ahead a little bit better. Oh, you don't program. Lua is your first language. Yeah, Lua is not bad to pick up. I don't know as a first language. Then that's more about like, I know the animation. I know. What is even going on? I don't know what's going on. Let's figure that out. All right, we're gonna clean up the animation so that Andrew doesn't kill me. Sprites. I don't know. I didn't draw it. You did. Put this on him. All right, so look, here we go. So this is 2, right? This is the one you were telling me to start with. If I had this correct, and I look back over at your notes that you sent me, I guess like the first language, I mean, JavaScript is probably an easy language. I mean, Lua wouldn't be bad to learn. I mean, I think it's just a question of the problem with Lua. Oh, you didn't move the gun version. Oh yeah, hey, look at that. Thank you. The problem with Lua is that there's like very custom implementations of it. So it's mostly a scripting language. It's not like you can just say like, I'm gonna have one dedicated development environment for Lua. There's a lot of different environments. Like even like my game engine uses like a flavor of Lua. So I would say doing something that's a little bit more standardized. I mean, JavaScript also suffers from that, but you can at least run it in a browser, and it's a dedicated developer environment. Where the hell am I outputting this? Sandbox. Oh yeah, right here. All right. Yeah, C# is my favorite language. I love C#. There we go. Why is that gun jiggling like that? That's weird, huh? What the fuck's going on here? Let me slow down the animation time. Let me do this too. I just want to see what the hell's going on here real quick. It looks like, oh, I know what the problem is. Well done. I didn't rebuild the sprite database. That's like what happens when like it corrupts memory. Like it was still referencing other parts of memory. No, JavaScript can't like infect your computer with viruses. I mean, I guess it could technically, but like that's like any programming language could fuck up your computer. There we go. Is that better, Andrew? Did we do it? It looks a lot better to me. I finally fixed your animation. I guess I just screwed that up. Now to slow him down. Yeah. Well, it would have to be tied to. I'm gonna have to tie it to. I'm gonna make the. All right. I might have to cut my stream a little bit short. All right, let's see what's going on. I experienced some years ago. I had a consequence that I had to format. Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. Damn the JavaScripts. All right. I can't type now, so all right, forget it. I'm getting away from this conversation. All right. How's that look, Andrew? So, all right, let's see. Looks a lot better. All right, what I'm kind of curious about is why is that broken? I keep seeing that. I wonder if there's something when it's running really slow, it doesn't know how to doesn't know how to stitch these things together. I just want to play this for a second and see what the hell's going on. The real stitch. My suggestion is I would find a book or a training course, which I have a bunch. I don't know if you have access to lynda.com, but I've done a whole bunch of courses on Unity. Like maybe to start Unity, learn C#, learn some programming, and go from there. Don't worry about a JavaScript virus. I don't even know what the hell he's talking about, but that's just my suggestion. All right, so. Right now, what we're trying to figure out is I want to clean up this entity stuff. I want to get rid of. We don't need the draw offset. We don't need on screen or use scroll screen. This is all old stuff. I'm going to get rid of the health. We don't need that or energy right now. All I want to do is get this to the point of where I don't even need this. Data frames, walk, first animation. I sort of was thinking of getting rid of this sprite, setting this up and just getting it to, this is the frame animation. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this, and I think I'm just gonna get rid of all this crap, and we're just gonna rebuild all this stuff from the ground up. So, Let's see here. Let's run this and just see if it still works. All right. So basically, he's going to run. This conversation is beyond me. Yeah, I don't know. Just ignore that. All right. So the animation stuff is pretty basic. Again, it's just going to going to make sure that everything is animated. I think the only other thing I was thinking of doing, just to make this a little bit more, reusable, is that I could have it where you pass in this object and it just adds this stuff to it. But let's do that. So I'm trying to find what I'm trying to figure out is a. What I'm trying to figure out is a really good way to, like, a good design pattern for building a Pixel Vision 8 game, especially in Lua. Some of the more interesting parts of Lua is that because it's so dynamic, I can just write these generic functions and pass around objects and have this very model-driven game. So what we're going to do is configure animation. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass this here. We're going to do entity, and we'll do delay. So instead of having to write this over again, all we do is set up animation. And we'll leave it at point 1. Right? And so then, oh, they left. No, there's some kids hanging outside of our house. My wife had asked me to keep an eye on. All right, so get off my lawn, you damn kids. Yeah, I know. Go throw rocks at them. Oh, they're gone. They were loitering. So, all right. So we configure the animation. This will just add the common stuff that we need for basic animation. And whoops, if we run it, we should be good to go. So now what's happening is that we're using the player's X position to basically scroll the screen. What I want to do next is let's take one of these other things, let's do the snake, and we'll create a basic. We should start with a really simple one. So function configure entity snake data, and what we would do is so this one's a little bit more complicated. I'm trying to keep this. I'm thinking about this step by step how I would build this if I was going to teach this as a tutorial. Nor entity update. All right, I'm going to leave that stuff as a reference, but what I want is I want this stuff to be basic, as simple as possible. What I was actually thinking of is, well, let's do one basic example here. So here, what we're going to do is data dot. We'll do. I started with the player. I don't know why I started with the player. The player is probably the harder one to do. What we do here is we're going to do configure animation, which will set this up to do the animation. Then on this thing's update, we're going to call animate update. But what we really need is to make a set of frames. The snake is a good one because it only consists of 2 frames. So all we're going to do here is build a table. And it should be something like snake 1, snake 2. Snake 1, snake 2. Right? So now if I was to come back here and let's just spawn a new entity. Spawn entity snake, and we're going to set it to 200 by 88. I'm going to just keep track of this, just so we have like a little variable for it. And let's run this real quick and see what happens. Oh, the speed is killing me. There's our snake. Now, the one thing we got to keep in mind is that I'm going to get rid of this because 88 plus 8. The problem is that the snake is a different height than the player, so it's just going to, whoops, and I was trying to set this to 50. All right, so now we should see the snake, and the snake is going to go off the screen. Now, the problem is that the snake is not drawing, but he's still on the screen. There's something else that I want to do real quick, and I want to create this thing called a rect equals new rect, and we're going to set its x value, its y value, and we'll give it an optional width and height. Actually, I don't think we even need to worry about this. Let's see if this works. The reason we're going to do a rect is that I want to start moving away from generic objects and using more of the built-in classes into Pixel Vision 8, because I can actually, when I was writing the game and I was like sort of running through everything, I started creating rects for each of the characters on the collision detection. But if I do that from the beginning, I can use Pixel Vision 8's own rect class in order to test whether there's an overlap between 2 rectangles. So my stomach is growling. I might take a quick break. And all right, so that seems to work. So what I want to do next is I'm going to get rid of the x, y width and height. We're going to get rid of the draw offset. This on-screen use scroll. We'll set remove to false. I don't need a type right now, and a UID. So let's call it this. Let's change ID to type. And again, I'm just going through and just trying to make sure that everything is simplified. We add this to the entities, entity data, perfect. All right, I'm going to move this also up here just so we know that it's spawning, but I'm probably going to remove that. We don't even, oh, I can't put it there because we don't have a UID. That's fine. We'll get rid of this. I already know that it's spawning. I'm going to get rid of all this and all this. Again, the goal is just to make this as simple as possible. Like over time, the way I'll do the tutorial is like we'll just layer in more and more logic. Now, when we go here to update the entities, we're just going to call update, fine. And when we go to animate the entity, what we need to do is, this is all fine. It's draw entity. What we're going to do is we're going to add a rect.x here. We don't need the draw offset. Well, we'll leave that in. Draw offset allows you to, like, let's say something. Just making sure I got everything in color offset. let's say, for example, something gets spawned, but we don't really want it on the draw offset equals a new vector 0, 0. Draw offset y. Fine. Yeah, that works. Let's actually make sure that that works instead of me just asking it in my head. I'll try to get some new stuff by Monday. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I fly out to Seattle on 45. 45. What's giving me the problem here? Code line 45. Code line 45. Hold on a second. Rect X. I fly out to Seattle on Tuesday, so Monday would be awesome because then I can like have something to play with on the airplane. Line 188. Line 188. Draw sprites. All right, so we need the sprite IDs. We need the rect X, the entity draw offset X, rect Y plus draw offset Y, the sprite data width, false, draw mode sprite. The reason we're using the sprite data's width and not the actual sprite's width is because the sprite is going to always be a different size than the player's collision area. I mean, there's lots of ways that we can skin this. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. Apparently, that's not working. Player. Why is that not increasing? Welcome to the joys of floats versus ints. So this is calculating a float. And the problem is that we want to calculate an int because I think we are going to have to do this with we're going to do this with a scroll position. All right, so the big problem is that what I could do is multiply time delta by 10 and then divide it down. So I sort of built Pixel Vision 8 to be more like an 8-bit system, and one of which is that it doesn't have floats. It's all int based. All right, Andrew, cool. See ya. But it causes little problems because Lua does have floats, but the Pixel. So once I set this to a rect, I basically lose the ability to have floating point math. So taking speed multiplied by the time delta winds up. See, that's weird. What I should do is. Oh my god, that would break everything. This is just an inconsistency problem. The time delta that comes in is a float. Time delta should actually be an int. Because it's a fraction of a millisecond. Or it's a collection of milliseconds. So it would be multiplied by 1,000. I'm going to put that down as a bug. That's something I think I need to clean up in the engine. This is not consistent. I'm actually going to put that under the SDK itself. Let's go to issues, create a new issue. PV8 doesn't use floats internally, with the exception of... Yeah, the float stuff gets really weird, and I had to remove floats because the problem is that there's no way to... Well, one, the old game systems were like that, and two, there's no way to do fractional scrolling in this kind of engine. So PV8 doesn't use floats internally with the exception of update time delta. Need to look into making this an int and how badly that will break everything. I don't think I have a milestone for this. I'm just going to put this down like this, and also need to make sure we are not anywhere else. Everything should be int based. All right, well, that's a pretty serious refactor. That will literally break everyone's games. All right, well, hey, you know, that's just the way that it goes. All right, I want to take a quick 5-minute break. I gotta take a snack. I'm like starting to fade. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna take a quick break. We'll just let this guy run, although he's not gonna run. What we need to do is we're gonna create a local new position x equals 0, and this will fix the problem. Basically, we're going to use Lua to calculate the float, and then setting it will create an int, but there's nothing we can do about that. All right, so that's, you know, this has been like something that's been on my mind for a while, and that stinks. All right, I'm going to let him run. I'm going to go take a quick 5-minute break. Where's my away message? Was it 1040? Let's do 1047. Just, this is gonna take me a second to 1047. Then when I come back, we're gonna work on removing any. Why did that happen? That shouldn't have happened. We're gonna take a look at removing entities and make sure that everything, the memory management, is clean in the game. So, all right, create entity system, closing that out, and I will be back at 10:47 a.m. 6 minutes roughly. All right, I'm back. Let's see here. Yeah, the background jitters. There's something up with the there's something up with the there's something up with the like the way Unity is rendering this crap. I haven't had a chance to go look through it. I took out VSync. I don't know why that doesn't match up correctly. What the hell is going on? I also noticed that Sandbox. Why isn't it drawing the numbers? Whatever. All right, so this appears to be okay. Let's create a new tile map real quick. So by hitting compress, that'll generate out a tiles JSON file that I can use in tiled map editor. All right, so what I wanted to do is this. Let's go to our entity, and on our snake entity, what we want to do is increase. We want to basically make him move. So what we can do is we can do something like this. We can do data dot speed equals 10, right? And in fact, what we're going to do is let's stop the scrolling altogether, and then we're going to move the snake to like 160. It'll be just off screen, right? And we'll have a speed here, and then on update, we're just going to simply take the data dot. See, we're going to run into the same problem. Yeah, PV8 is made in Unity. It's PV8's C#, but I've been using Unity to cross compile it right now. The core of it's all C#. Data speed. All right, so here's my problem. I don't really like. This is causing more problems than I want. I think what I'm going to do is the X and Y position is going to be, well, fuck. Do I really want to fix this? Like, I'm kind of curious about something here. Let's look at the source code for a second. I don't remember how I'm calculating that update value. So if you're just tuning in, I'm rebuilding my Ludum Dare game so that it actually works because it was a buggy mess. One problem that I'm running into is that I got to get rid of floats, and in order to make the game engine more consistent. So what I'm going to take a look at real quick is in the source code. Assets, Pixel Vision, SDK, runner. Let's see here. Update float time delta. So where am I calling? Where am I calling update? I think that's on. Yeah, but what calls this update? Virtual update. Important that we call. That's the runner. Scripts. Runners. Base runner. Right, the time delta. So this is a float from Unity. It's the time in seconds it took to complete the last frame. So my theory is that it's really 1,000. I'd actually like to know how you import artwork to PBA during runtime. Yeah. There's a whole series of that's like a whole other complicated thing. Long story short, for Pixel Vision 8, all I do is well, it's very complicated because of what there's a. I'll talk about it real quick. Like at a high level, basically what you got to understand is that yeah, it's just WW class loading. It's a little more complicated because you can either load a zip file and I just extract the zip into memory and then pull it out. But internally, there's a custom texture data class that indexes colors. So as you load in an image, it'll pull it apart and turn it into references to the system colors. So everything you see here is all being indexed. Even the tools, like the tools are actually a game. So it's a very complicated system. It's all open source. You can go dig through the crap. All right, so time delta. What I'm trying to figure out is, let's take a quick look here at what time delta actually looks like. Because I have a feeling that the PNGs I import are taking way too much memory. Yeah, well, it's very like what I do is very time consuming to go through. I actually have like a whole series of like if I got rid of like, okay, here, take a look at this, right? Like let's get rid of the tile map, right? And run the game. And the tile map cache. Well, this game's not very big, but like I'll move all this stuff and then run it. It takes a little bit to go through and process. Parsing out the image stuff. See how long it's taking right here? This is the better example. When I actually come in here and render this out, I have to go and I came up with like a green threading solution so that it doesn't block the UI thread. So there's a lot that I've done. I mean, I've been working on this for 2.5 years, so I've gotten a lot of optimization in, but you know, luckily I'm working with very small, like this is a 16K image and it's not very big. It doesn't take very long to go through and process, but it grows exponentially as you add it. All right, I want to take a quick look at something here. I want to I want to print out the time delta and just see what value we're getting here between frames. This should be, it's a second, so what we should be getting is a fraction of a second. So I just got to, I can't remember if I need to multiply it by 1,000 or, was it milliseconds or 100? So let's do some, I'm so bad at math. Right, so we're getting a fraction. So this is the fractional time we're getting per the 16, 1,000. Delta time is in seconds, right? So if I multiplied this by 100, that would give me the real value in seconds, right? What I didn't multiply by. Yeah, no, I got that part. I got the A plus time delta. What I got to do is I can't have delta be a fraction. I would be counting whole numbers as seconds. Well, here we go. So technically what would happen is so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so adding this up between 1 point, it should be multiplied by 100. let's see here. Right, so that's like 1.6 seconds, 1.6 seconds, 1.7 seconds there. So hold on a second. Time delta unable to return an int. Let's see if anyone else has figured this out. I want to output floats as whole numbers. Try current mana to string, where pound is the string formula, I believe. A pound sign will show you a whole number. Show float in whole numbers, not decimal. So is this a floating point thing you're trying to remove? Yeah, I want to, by converting it to an int or something. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out what the best way. So okay, the only place that the engine actually uses an int is all right. Here's the real problem that I'm trying to figure out. Right now, I've always just done speed multiplied by time delta, which gives me a fraction of the speed over a certain amount of frames, right? But when it saves it back to the rect, it's always going to be an int. So I feel like I got to. I can't figure out how I want to do the math for this. Like, my gut's telling me is that update. Yeah, PV8's supposed to run at 60 frames a second. That's like the idea, but it doesn't always run at 60 frames a second. Like, I'm sure my math is a little bit off. Oops. If I come here and I do, like, I'll go into one of the demos. So it's going between like 59 and 55 frames a second. So what I want to do is, instead of having that as a fraction, I want it as a whole number, and then I just need to figure out how to do speed based on that whole number. It would probably be like my thinking was that if I just did if I did time delta multiplied by... No, the reality is this. Here's the problem. I don't think I can ever make time delta a whole number. Even though the engine doesn't understand floats, it's still a float value. Like, there's no way to round it up unless I really got specific and, like, locked the frame rate. So what I'm thinking is that if I just multiply... I wonder what happens here. Yeah, see... Time delta multiplied by 100. Let me do this first. I suck at math. What I want to figure out is, all right, let's see here. Technically, the way that it should work is that if I wanted the player to move if I wanted him to move 8 pixels every 60 seconds, I don't know. I feel like I'm walking down a rabbit hole I don't want to be in. Math, float, time delta divided by speed. Yeah. Either way. Speed is going to be a float. Well, I guess what I'm trying to figure out how to do is how to get it to cleanly move at whole integers. But that's fine. Maybe what I could do is set the player rect to equal. Let me try what you're doing. Math floor. I hate like this new Lua plugin for Atom. It doesn't know how to do the code complete correctly. Math.floor time delta multiplied by 1000 multiplied by speed. That doesn't seem right to me. Really? Is that what that is? $26. $45. Time delta. Oh, I see. No, it's still giving me 0. I don't think that's right either. Oh, you had to divide it, right? Because if speed is 1 divided by 1000, it's obviously a float. Yeah, it's going to be a float. No, the problem is that no, this problem is simpler than this. This should come in as a whole second. So what we would do is let me see this thing in Lua. Lua convert float to int. Oh, I don't want to do that. Yeah, floor. Fine. All right, so what would happen is we need to do math floor time delta multiplied by 100 because it's seconds. It's not milliseconds. Right? So we would just assume that each frame is a single second, right? So that's going to give us 1 every time. Right? So that's going to give us 1. So that just means that our new position is going to be the speed it's going to be speed multiplied by time delta. Nine. Lock it to 1 update per 1 second. Right, but why is this not moving now? So the speed is going to be 1. Oh, I set it to 0. I'm a fucking idiot. Why are you not moving? No, still doesn't like that idea. Print. Why isn't it like this idea? Should be moving 50. If I was to set this thing to I see what I'm doing. Wow. Maybe it's time for me to stop streaming. All right, here's what we need to do. We need to set the player position, new position X. There we go. All right. I think this is what I was looking for, right? What I want to do, Yeah, too fast, too fast. There we go. Now we're moving 1 pixel a frame. Why does that not line up correctly? Whoa, what the hell is happening? Why is it not lining up correctly? All right, so we set the player's speed to like 3 or something. He'll be really fast. All right, so that's a little bit better. Because what I want to get to is this point of where, like, for a game that's like simple like this, everything should move. So I think what I want to do, it would break like a lot of people's games, is that the next update, I'm going to update a whole number and get rid of the float. So this way, like, if you want to use floats and stuff in the engine, shoot, I don't want to like break things like that. What I might do is a toggle that like moving, like, so there's some stuff I can do to like make it where if you're like, old games would work fine, but it would pass in a float, but I don't know. So let's go back to what I was originally trying to do here. I want to have the snake move 1 pixel a frame. So let's go over to our snake, and on update, what we're going to do is data.rect.x equals data.rect.x plus data.speed multiplied by time floor math floor dot time delta multiplied by 100, and that will make him move. So his speed is going to be 1 frame a second. I think this is like the one missing piece that I've been too lazy to sort out in the engine, is that these old, like, I've been cheating, like, because we're using Lua and C#, like, it's really easy just to do floats and stuff, but it really, like, these old systems didn't have floating point processors. They didn't even know how to do floating math, right? So when something moved, it moved at a single pixel or a certain amount of pixels per frame. You can't do half a pixel. It just didn't equate. So what we're going to do is see if the snake just moves. Let me put the snake somewhere on the screen where we can see it. Now the snake's not even displaying. Oh. Minus. There we go. All right, now our snake's moving at 1 frame a second. All right, so I'm just like thinking in my head like how bad it's going to break everything by changing. I think what I'm going to do is leave it as floats, and maybe in like the next major release I'll go back and fix that, but it's too big of a problem. It's too big of a thing to change in a dot release. Like I'm not Unity. Like Unity breaks crap like literally from each dot release to the next dot release. I don't feel like doing that. I don't even think people are really making games with this, anyways. To be honest with you, I think I'm the only person who's making games with Pixel Vision 8 right now. Let's see here. So, all right, we got this guy updating. So the next thing I wanted to do was, I feel like the player should be updating too, instead of it doing it in this here. But that's like a whole other step, right? So, all right, what I want to do now is, let's take a look at this. This is the problem. We're going to do print snake update. So if we look at our output statement here and we rerun this, and you will now see Snake is just updating, right? Even when he goes off the screen, he's just continuing to update. And what I want to do before I end the stream in an hour, or a little less than an hour, is I want to add back in the code that cleans up entities. Also, what I'm trying to think of is that draw should probably... I was trying to think, like, maybe the entity should draw itself. Just like we're having it animate itself. Unless we assume that all entities have a frame. I don't know. All right, I'll think about that in a minute. This one we might just keep very simple. All right, so let's do this. What we want to do now is we're going to want to take a look to see if a entity is out of bounds. So one thing that I was kind of thinking of doing was we should probably flip the speed, and there are like several ways to do this. Right now we're sort of cheating. The snake is moving. The snake's sprites are to the left. What I'm thinking is that all sprites should be to the right, and we are going to change the speed based on its flip position. So let's go ahead and do that. Clearly, this is not going to be a straight port of my game because I want to fix a lot of the stuff that I just like hacked together. So let's flip this horizontally. Edit, flip this horizontally. Edit, edit, transform, flip horizontal. Image, edit, transform, flip horizontal. Too much skipping and time loss. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I don't think it really matters. Like, it's really for those instances where transform, flip. It's really for those instances where it skips by like 4 or 5 frames, right? If that average should be always the same. So what I'm thinking about for this tutorial would be, I would probably, instead of jumping into the player, I'd probably just start with the enemies and sort of work on a way of detecting when an enemy goes on and off the screen correctly. So let's save this out, and I'm going to remove the player for a minute and just try to simplify this example. Replace all of this stuff, and then I need to save out a PNG of this, so save that, replace, All right, so we see our snakes walking backwards, which is kind of cool, but not what we want to do. We want to actually multiply speed by data. Well, we would do, yeah. Let's do this. We're going to set flip H to true. Or actually, we'll set it to false. And flip H is a flag that we use when we're drawing in order to flip stuff. So we're going to do data speed multiplied by flip H. Why don't we do this? We'll do local direction equals local direction equals flip H and if flip H is true, that would be -1 or 1. Local speed equals data dot speed multiplied by math. I don't think there is a round in Lua. No, there's math floor time delta multiplied by 100. Again, if you want to use floats, you can do that in Lua. Like, what I'm trying to get to is, once you go into one of Pixelvision 8's systems, such as like the vector or the rect, they're going to be int, and you're going to lose that conversion. So if you want to keep track of it outside of Pixelvision 8, great. I think that's why I'm going to leave time delta the way that it is. So this way you always get a 100% accurate difference in milliseconds. But what we're going to do is, since we're going to be building this like it's an actual 8-bit game, we're going to convert the float into an int and then use that in order to figure this out. So what we'll do here is this will be speed multiplied by direction. So again, I wouldn't write, like, this code is, I'll leave that up there. This code's a little bit more verbose than what I would normally be writing, but again, I'm trying to get this to the point where it's clean enough that I can reference it to write a tutorial. So what we're looking for here is the direction. So what I want to do in spawn entity types, we're going to do a direction. And well, actually, we'll just do flip H, flip V, width and height. No, I don't want to. I'm not going to build more than I need to. There's nothing here that uses flip V, so. And in fact, let's just get rid of this. Well, yeah, that's fine. Okay. What I want to do is when we configure animation. All right, we'll deal with that later. I'm thinking of like 10 steps ahead of where I need to be, but I need to think about right now. All right, so what we're going to do is pass in whether we're going to do flip H. And the reason why is that when we come here and we do the draw, we're going to do entity.flipH. All right, so let's take a look at this, and our snake should now move or break. Code entity 22. Or false. What were we at? Code entity 22. It didn't like this. Data speed multiplied by, yeah, all right. Time delta multiplied by 100. Where the hell did my snake go? All right, what we want to do is tell the snake that when we configure a snake entity, what we are not doing is we need to tell the flip h equals true, and we're going to flip it the other way. So there, now our snake is flipped correctly. So if we add in the move logic, it should now move in the right direction or go off the fucking screen. What am I doing wrong here? Flip H is true. We would need to add negative. So if flip H is true, it should be -1 or it should just be 1. The speed is this. And then now speed multiplied by direction, if this is true, should be negative. Why is he moving in the opposite direction? My Achilles heel is math. I'm like an artist. That's my background. Fucking son of a... Time to mark the channel is not kid friendly as I curse my way through math. Is it not? Why would it not be? What the hell is the direction? Why is that 1? The direction should be if flip H equals true. -1? I think like the one thing I wanted to do with the tutorial and sort of why I'm sort of taking some time out to like rethink some of these edge cases is because what I want to do is I want to make it where I'm going to start off with like, hey, we're going to build a simple endless runner, and then what we'll do is at the very end of the tutorial be like, hey, now that you understand the basic concepts of like how to like spawn stuff, how to create stuff, how to move stuff, let's get rid of the endless runner aspect and now just let the player freely move around, and all the same mechanics of spawning and stuff should all work as expected. So now our guy is moving backwards because something is wrong here. If this equals nil, I think this is the problem here. I think when we create the entity, data.flip h. Snake is false. But here, oh, true, right. There we go. True flips him and false still does that. What am I, like, why is my brain, like, shutting off today? Yeah. that's the time of the day, like when I don't get enough food, my brain starts like not working right. So I guess it's my like blood sugar is going low and I can't focus on anything. All right, so now this should work finally. Like 18th time is the charm. Set this to true. There we go. All right, so now we have our snake. What I want to do, the last thing I want to do is basically remove the snake when they get off the screen. So the Nintendo was like really aggressive about this. What you probably remember is like when you played old Nintendo games, you could like walk off the screen and then come back and like the bad guy would just respawn. And a lot of the times you can use that in order to, you know, get rid of bad guys by like just running past them and they would just get away. That's just the Nintendo's literally just didn't have the memory to handle all of those things. So what we're gonna do in order to simulate that is, and why I was adding this direction stuff to it, is we want to calculate when the entity is off of the screen. So what I had this logic somewhere around here. Here, it was basically this. So what I want to do is let's move this code now into here. And what we want to calculate is whether the entity is on screen or off screen. So now, why the direction is important. Basically, we're going to check either we always want to check in front of the in front of the entity to see if it's still within the bounds of the screen. Now, what happened before was that in the game that I wrote, I had bullets checking their own direction, and I had other things checking their direction, and I had like this big mess is what I really had. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by we'll get rid of this, and we're going to test to see if the entity is still on the screen. In fact, what I actually want to do is let's get rid of this and this, and we're going to do a local on-screen value, and we're going to set it equal to, we need to figure out the entity.x position and see if it's less than, in this case, it's going to be easy, right? We're going to take the scroll position x, we'll take the scroll position x plus 144. It should actually be, it should be 160, but let's do this. Let's just set it to 100 and see where we go. And what we're going to do is, if on screen, we'll update the entity. Right, so let's take a look real quick. I want to actually come in here and let's go into the log file and clear the log file out. Did Pixel Vision 8 hang? Wow. It beach balled. I wonder if the log file is too large for it to go through. All right, let's try that again, but like where it works. That's today's build, right? Yep. All right, so that'll just create a new log file anyways. All right, so what I want to look to see is Lua 60, line 60. On screen, entity rect x equals scroll position x. And are we actually getting the accurate scroll position? Yeah, we're passing that back in. Good. So technically what should happen is, if my math is correct, if the scroll position is always the left-hand side of the screen, right? So what we want to do is we want to remove the entity as soon as its x position is to the left of the screen. And stop rect should be rect. Thank you. I would have found that bug out pretty soon. Yeah, I love the typos, man. Why write code quickly when you can just typo everything out? All right, so now it's not updating anything. Snake true. Why is the snake no longer updating? If I hear it, here's what it is. If snake is greater than 100. All right. I'm gonna do some math to figure this out on both ends. All right. So as soon as he hits that edge, he's immediately gonna stop, right? And what we want to do is we're actually going to take into account the scroll position x minus the scroll rect w. I believe, hold on, let me look at the documentation. I love that I have to look up my own game engine's documentation. That's like how bad I am at it. I've written so much code that I can't even keep track of this crap in my head. Oh, and you know what? I don't even document the rect. Good job, Jesse. Let's just look at the source code. Data vector rect. It should be width. Yeah. So now what we're going to do is, if we rerun this, we'll see that this guy will stop at the same place. And the reason is that we have not set a width and a height for the snake. So in here, when we go and we configure our snake, what we're going to do is set the data rect.width equal to 16 and data rect height equal to 16. Every time you went to the docs today, you found out that you're not documenting. Yeah, well, that's why that's what this project's all about. Is I need to write a. I have over like 150 pages of docs. Like there's just a lot of like weird little stuff that I haven't documented fully yet. It takes a lot. I mean, there's some high level stuff, but what I wanted this tutorial to be was really a like how to get, like, I've documented the tooling a lot. And I've documented some of like the like core of like what things do. There's like some stuff about, like you'd asked earlier about how like sprites work. How do I load sprites? Well, I don't tell you like mechanically how I do it in C#. I do have what I like to believe are good docs that explain sort of how Pixel Vision 8 reads sprites into memory and how it deals with colors per sprite and how it breaks up the pages of memory and stuff like that. And how to optimize, but you know, this is a complicated system. All right, so I'm going to redo this now. Now that the snake has a width and a height, when he goes off screen, he should be good. And I don't think he's. Let's do this. Print snake update. my hope is that when I write this tutorial, excuse me, and I see this as being like a proper like little like mini book on how to build a game on the engine. As I write the tutorial, I'm going to break out pieces of it and put it into the documentation. So that's my plan. It's going to take me like a few months to do. I'm not in any particular rush. All right, so he was updating and now he stopped updating, right? So what we want to do now is we're going to we want to test out the opposite direction. And what I need to do is basically take a look to see if what I want to do here is get the local bounds equals display, and let's do this. We're going to always say that he's on screen is set to true, right? Next, we're going to test if entity dot direction or flip h is true, then else end. Now I would normally, if I was going to write this, I would truncate this because this is like silly, but there's actually kind of like a few things that we could do here. We could do a rect collision test. We could set the bounds. That's not a bad idea, actually. Let's try doing that. Because display, which is documented correctly, by the way. Where's the API cheat sheet? Display visible defines as soon as exists on the screen. Ah, don't tell you what I return. Why is? Oh, right, because I'm in the shorthand. I'm in the. Where's the full API? Lua API. By default, this will return a visible screen area based on the overscan value. The default. Oh, I don't tell you if returns are rect or not. Why isn't there's? I do have return values. Why isn't it showing the return value? Strange. All right, let's write a bug for that. Game creator issues docs not API docs not showing return value. I'm going to set that for, that is a bug. We'll do that in, oh God, the thought of having that out by June is frustrating. But yeah, it's probably how long it's going to take me to write all this stuff. All right. It should be a rect. I'm pretty sure it's a rect. Let's look. Damn it. Oh, I have it open here. Returns a vector. Not what I wanted. I know. Return types can be more than one. All right. I don't think this is going to work the way that I wanted it to. It could. Well, what we could just do is something like this. Local local display local bounds equals new rect 0 0 display x display y. Wait, I bet you $5 I have an API for this. Oh, no, I pulled it out. I used to have an API for calling the visible boundaries of the screen that would actually make this for you. I don't remember why I took it out. I think I was trying to simplify the APIs a little bit. All right, I'm running out of time. I have 15 minutes, and then I have a call that I got to do for work, and actually start like real work for the day. So what I'd like to do is let's do a quick test here and just see if on the rect there should be a intersects with, or that's a point. Intersects with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change. What we're going to do is on update, we're going to say the bounds.x equals scroll position x, bounds.y equals scroll position y. Let me just run this and make sure I'm not breaking anything real quick. Like this, line 69. $148. All right. So what we're going to do, and that's going to keep updating. So let's, good, I exited it. All right. So we're going to see if on screen equals bounds dot intersects with entity.rect. In fact, we can just simplify this for if bounds intersects with rect, then if this has an update, there we go. So all right, that got removed, and is it still updating? I can't tell. Well, here's what we should do. Let's just do, I'm going to make a quick counter. And we'll do data.counter equals data.counter plus time delta. And we'll just print out the counter. So if the counter keeps incrementing, then we know it's still running. Oh, okay, it stopped, right? So now let's try to change this guy to the opposite direction by making it false. Boom. I wasn't looking to see, but cool. All right, so what I'm thinking is now let's add speed back as 2, or actually we'll make it 1. And what should happen is the player and the snake should now move at the same speed. Look at that! Yay! It works. Right? So now, since the snake hasn't made it off of the screen, it's just going to keep updating, and the player will keep following it because they're both moving at the same speed. If we were to change this to 2 and rerun this, the player will now walk faster than the snake, and then the snake should be done updating. Oh, perfect. All right. This is so much cleaner than how I had it before. Because now I don't even have to deal with, any of the, I'm dealing with any of the other crap that I was doing for like making sure it's on screen and all this stuff. Now all we need to do is flag the entity to be removed. So we'll do else entity.remove equals true. And now what we'll do is if entity remove equals does not equal true, then update. Right? So we're going to let's write some notes. So get the next entity. Look to see if the entity has been flagged to be removed. Test to see if the entity is on the screen. If entity has update, callback, call it. Entity is off screen, flag it to be removed. So, and you might be asking, well, why don't you just delete it now? But the problem is, and this is what I was running into, this is one of the big problems I have in my game, is that I tried to delete it as soon as it was off the screen, and because I'm in the middle of this loop for the entities, it basically screws everything up. So that's the flag. And what we're going to do at the end of draw is, as we go through and draw stuff, what we're going to do is see if entity removed does not equal true. And you might be asking, well, why are we testing to see if it's not equal to true? And that's because what I don't want to do is when I create an entity, I don't want to have this flag already set. So like I can get rid of this, and this is the best part of Lua, is that we can actually do some like dynamic stuff. So in this case, what we could say is, all right, just add that flag to the data object when we need it, and Lua is automatically going to return a nil value. But if the value exists and it's true, it'll return true. If I set it defaults, it still won't be true. And that's one thing I actually like about Lua, at least when it comes to like sketching out like games like this. So what I want to do is this. We're going to trace out the print update entities. And let's just take a look real quick and make sure I didn't break anything. Man, I'm so bad at this. 222. I think it's because I started doing this in 22. What? Entity manager 222. I must have. I didn't add the end here. All right, so we're still updating two entities, right? What we want to do is let's go in and now that this has been flagged to be removed, I'm going to pull this out here. Update entity. All right, so we're going to look at the active entities, and we're going to create a list of active entities. So if we're coming through and it hasn't been marked as removed, what we're going to do is add it to the active entities. On the event that it has been removed, it's flagged as removed, we're going to remove it from the current entities list. And at the end of the last update, we're going to copy over the active entities into the entity system. So let's see if this works. Man, 167. There we go. Boom. So now we're only updating one entity. I'll redo this and we'll see it work. So it's updating the snake. The snake is gone, and now we're only updating one entity, which is just our player. All right, and that is, for all intents and purposes, a very clean and very simple animation system. And entity system. So, what I kind of feel like should happen is that, well, I don't know. I feel like animation should happen on its own. I don't like having to call this animate entity and to set up the entity stuff. I'm gonna sleep on that one. Basically, what I got to decide is, do I want to do I want to automatically update the animation? Basically making the assumption that every entity has, just like we see if it has an on update, what we should look for is to see if it has a if it has frames, and then we would just update the frames. What we could just do here is call animate entity, pass in the entity and the time delta, and then we can remove this animate entity from here, and like the player, we don't even need this. And everything animates. And then it's a little bit, it works a little bit more. I hate having to set up like redundant code. All right, so we're good with the snake update. So now, what we should do is frames. Where's our animate? I'm gonna end it at this, and then I gotta get on this call. I'm about to be late. Remove entity, draw entities, configure animation, delay. Let's do frames delay. So what we'll do here is just set up the entity frames and pass it in this, and that should be good to go. The only thing we need to do for the player now is just pass in this, and we can get rid of this, and that should do our player. And now I think our system feels a little bit cleaner. Cool. All right, thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to end the stream for today. I'll be back on Monday, and then I'm basically gone most of next week while I'm in Seattle. I won't be able to stream. But thanks for watching. Seems like a pretty good stream today. I feel like we now have the tile map generation done. We have a very basic entity system working, and we have configured the animation. So I think this is good. It feels so much cleaner than what I did before. It's amazing like how sloppy your code is during a game jam. But thanks everyone, and I will see you guys most likely on Monday. Thanks for watching.